Hi guys, and welcome to week 3 of the Environment Creation Workshop. Now this week we will be covering all we need to know to create the foliage that we need for the final shot within SpeedTree. We'll start by checking out SpeedTree and its features and tools, and finish off by optimizing it and setting the geometry up within Houdini. So of course SpeedTree is a very complex program, much like Houdini can be at times, and there is no way that we can cover every single setting, but we'll make sure that we know everything we need to make some high quality assets that we can use in our scene. Okay, so let's begin. When we first open SpeedTree, we are greeted with this window. And one thing we'll notice is that at the top we have the templates and at the bottom we have the recent models. And the templates are a source and a wealth of information that we can use to find out more about how to create different assets within SpeedTree. I would definitely encourage opening up some of these files and taking a look through and checking out some of the settings and how some of these trees have been created. But for the purposes of this training, of course, what we want to do is create our own tree. So we'll start by opening up a blank scene. Just double click on the blank option here. And you're greeted with a workspace that is split into 3. So we have the properties and the generation window on the left, much like the parameters and the network view in Houdini. We have the viewport in the middle and some other settings that we will get into a bit later on the right. The first observation is obvious that SpeedTree is node based, much like Houdini, so everyone here should be pretty comfortable with the workflow. So to begin just covering the most important parts of what we need to know, at least for now, we'll just expand the network view or the generation view and add a new tree. So here we have a node and this will be the base of the whole tree. So we will right click and add a trunk. Cool. So the trunk itself is just a curve that has some thickness applied to it and it's varying from the base to the top. And we also have this very handy template that comes into the scene here that we can use as a size gauge over the scenes and over the different assets that we choose to make to keep them consistent and to make sure we don't go a bit crazy with some of our sizes. For the moment, I won't look through every setting. I'll just cover the most important ones, at least for the trunk, and introduce you to some of the settings that we'll use time and time again. So if we go to the Gen or Generation tab here at the bottom, all I'm really interested in at this point is the number, which is how many trunks. In this case, we'll leave it at 1, and for the most part, and in most cases, we only need 1 because we'll only work on one tree at a time. We have the roll, which is the rotation, and it's the same as the rotation here, and we have position and size. We also have sync, but that's easier to demonstrate when we have some branches. So let's go to the spine tab, and this is where we control the height and some of the shape of the trunk. We have the absolute length. Again, some settings that pertain more to branches. We'll look at them in a second. We have the start angle and the gravity. And the next option here to look at would be the noise. And the early noise is a little bit unpredictable. For the most part, just using the late noise will suffice. Okay, so again, we'll skip shape and jump to skin. And this controls the surface of the trunk. So we have the width or the radius. We have the welding, which pertains to the blending between the branches as we go up the tree. And lastly, we have the splits, and this just adds some, as you can imagine, splits into the trunk or the branches. And we can control them in a second. We have UVs. For the most part, the UVs work quite well. We don't need to do much to them, but we'll explore what we need to do to maybe change them up a bit if and when we need a bit later. We have the displacement, which changes the interest on the surface. We can just crank that up and see what it does. We have a whole host of settings, again, we'll cover soon. And the last thing I want to mention here is just the segments. And this is where we start to look at optimizing the tree itself. So that's everything on the left side. On the center, we have the viewport. We can scroll in and out using the middle mouse button to zoom. Left rotates around, middle mouse button down does the pan, or we can use the left mouse button and the middle mouse button to control the zoom if we just press them both at the same time. We can also press Z just to zoom back into whatever we're working on at the time. Cool. We have light angle here. We can double click to access this. And the fan, which controls the animation, we'll come back to this. And just the polygon amount of whatever you have clicked on at the time, or just the whole model when nothing is selected. Up above this, we have the render, so we can change whether or not we're looking at, say, the standard or the wireframe version. We have show, which is just to hide certain objects. We have the forces that we can look at a bit later again. We can also set up LODs, and this is where we can switch between them. High, medium, low, and draft. We can add more to our tree using the option here, but I prefer just to add them here within the generation viewport. And the last one is just some gizmo control, and then turning on collisions, AO, and then some export options. Now on the right we can control our materials and our meshes, and these actually kind of link together, but we'll come back and I will explain exactly what that means in another video. But for now, that's kind of what we work with and what we have to work with. The other cool thing about SpeedTree is you can open more than one tree file at a time. If I, for instance, go to new and grab one of these guys, you'll see it opens two at a time, which is quite handy when you want to jump between and compare different trees. So that's all I wanted to cover for a quick intro video, and next we'll look at beginning to add new tools to our tree, continuing to build the tree, and looking at the settings and options as we go. Thanks.